Most people who look up at the sky and wonder about what might be out there assume that wondering is something they arrived at on their own, a sighting they heard about, a documentary they stumbled across, a feeling that the official story never quite added up. What almost nobody considers is that this impulse, the impulse itself, the cultural framework that makes flying saucers feel plausible and exciting and worth chasing, was largely the product of one man sitting behind a desk in Wisconsin, editing a science fiction pulp magazine called Amazing Stories. Raymond Palmer understood something about human beings that most people in his position never bothered to think about. He understood that the line between a story and a belief is thinner than anyone wants to admit, and that a skilled editor with a large enough audience could walk readers right across that line without them ever noticing. That theory was about to be tested when a welder named Richard Shaver began sending him letters claiming that an ancient subterranean civilization of beings called the Deros were controlling human behavior from deep beneath the Earth's surface. Palmer did not file it away. Instead, he published it. He promoted it and let it breathe until hundreds of thousands of readers were no longer sure whether they were reading fiction or testimony. By the time Kenneth Arnold made his famous sighting over Mount Rainier in 1947, and a misquote on the AP Newswire gave the world the term flying saucer, the audience Palmer had spent years cultivating was ready and waiting. Tonight, we are going to pull on the thread with two guests who have dedicated their creative lives to exploring the strange history of this state and this country. Dr. Dean Bertram holds a PhD in history from University of Sydney, Australia, and his writings have appeared in 40 Times, People Magazine, The Spectator, and The Australian. He's a filmmaker and festival programmer who runs both Midwest Weird Fest and a Night of Horror International Film Festival, just to our east in Eau Claire. His documentary short, The Shaver Mystery, won 10 Best Short Documentary Awards across festivals ranging from the 40 Film Festival and Genre Blast to the Philip K. Dick Film Festival and Berlin Sci-Fi. And he is currently in production on the feature-length version of that story, titled The Man Who Invented Flying Saucers. Joining him is his filmmaking partner, Samantha Krause, a Wisconsin native raised in Wausau, a city still surrounded by farmland and forest and layered with its own legends, cryptid sightings, and haunted history. Together, they create the web series Home Movie Legend Trip, bringing that local strangeness to the screen in a way that is both deeply personal and genuinely unsettling. Tonight, Dr. Dean Bertram and Samantha Krause are our White Rabbits. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jake. Welcome to Project White Rabbit, presented by Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Imagine that this line represents a time, present 1985, future, past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate to you, me, and Einstein, but reality for everyone else.
Well, we have ourselves a great lineup today. We have dove into the story of Richard Sharp Shaver and his mysteries before on this show. We talked about it during my 4-part series on the Hollow Earth. You can't talk Hollow Earth without Richard Sharp Shaver. So, Jake, you got any questions before I start?
No.
Very well. He's such a gentleman, I'll tell you.
He is.
All right. So, Dean, let's start with you.
Sure.
You wrote your doctoral dissertation on the history of UFO belief in America. How does a historian end up in that territory?
Jeez, it's a very long story. I don't know how long you want the story to be. I'll try to do the cliff notes of the story. When I was a kid, I'd had a recurring I don't know what it was, a nightmare or an experience, a bedroom visitation essentially and this is a long story, so I won't tell the whole story, but essentially being visited by a small entity at night that I used to think of as the little man is what I referred to him as shorthand. The little man would come and take me away, would be the way I would remember the story. But I never ever considered it was alien abduction. In fact, I really stopped thinking about it not long after the time it was happening. I don't even know the exact age, but I was probably around 5 years of age. And I was a kid of the 70s and 80s, so I grew up on shows like, In Search Of and films like Close Encounters
Mhm.
and E.T. So I was certainly immersed within popular culture ufology, but I didn't ever put two and two together and think, oh, that little man must have been an alien, coming to take me away. That never occurred to me. And incidentally, just quickly, I still don't think it was, or I don't now think it was an alien coming and taking me away, but around the time I think I just finished my bachelor's degree at the University of Sydney. So I don't know, I'm in my, early 20s, and I was working of all things as a private investigator. I took a couple gap years before I went back and did my master's. And I used to buy books. I've always bought books, but I was always looking for books in this period to read when I was in surveillance, so I could have one eye on the page and checking whatever building I was watching or whatever person I was watching. And I saw a book on a book sale table outside of a bookstore in the northern suburbs of Sydney, and it was a book by a psychologist whose name was Edith Fiore. It was a book called Encounters. And it came at kind of that popular period after Whitley Strieber's Communion and Bud Hopkins, Intruders and Missing Time had made waves, and other people started doing books in the alien abduction space. And so I don't know why, I was very attracted to the book for some reason. I picked it up. Later, Diana Pasulka would say in her first book in this kind of area, she would talk about the book encounter, that often people would find a book or read a book, and then they would contextualize their experiences within the pages of that book. And that's what happened to me. I was reading not Diana Pasulka's book then, Edith Fiore's book then. And Edith Fiore obviously knew how to elicit a response from a reader and probably from her patients, because at the beginning of the book, she made a big point of saying, you should read this book with a notepad and a pen, and if you have any uncomfortable experiences, or this book makes you, think about something that's happened to you, or if your heartbeat, increases, you should maybe make notes, because maybe you too were an alien abductee. And I didn't at this stage think I was an alien abductee at all, but when I was reading the book bothered me. But that makes sense. I mean, it's a scary book, right? I was probably at the time, I wasn't immersed in the idea of, false memory syndrome and, the way that people can be manipulated who are going under some type of regression. So I kind of read it without any grain of salt, and I'm reading that and then when I'm reading the book and there's all these terrifying stories about alien abduction, of course, what did I think about? The little man encounter. And so I started to think, what, am I an alien abductee? Because this book's telling me I'm an alien abductee. This is making me uncomfortable. I have a strange story of my own of when I was a child that still kind of bothers me at the back of my subconscious about this little entity coming into my room at night. And so that kind of opened the floodgates for me. So although I was interested again in things like In Search Of and Close Encounters as a kid, I hadn't spent any of my teen years, interested in any of this stuff. Or certainly not my initial 3 years of, university or college. But then that made me go and read a bunch of UFO books and magazines. I started literally buying multiple magazines weekly, reading everything I could, not just on the abduction phenomenon, but on UFOs in general. And I finally, on a trip to America under very strange circumstances, read a copy of John Keel's The Mothman Prophecies. And I think reading that book, and like I said, I had taken a couple of years off from college, and Keel gave me the idea that you can look at the UFO phenomenon seriously without necessarily having to apply an extraterrestrial hypothesis approach to it. So it made me want to go to college. So that's why I went to college to do my master's initially. And my master's was my dissertation, was also essentially on American UFO history. I went from the 1897 airship flap up until the time when I was doing it in the late 90s. And When I finished my master's, I essentially, I used to be a rabble-rouser with a BA, then I was a rabble-rouser with an MA, so I thought I might as well do my PhD. And so then I, pushed even harder. And I know it's a long answer, but that's how I ended up getting into this space.
No, it's perfect. A lot to unpack there. I like to give context to the listeners of the show. Diana Pasulka is a highly recommended author. She does a lot of books. In fact, she has a book called Encounters, mostly dealing with anything that you can encounter, including AI, alien beings, anything under the sun, really. Diana Pasulka dives very heavily into the UFO alien phenomenon. Who is the name of the author from the book Encounters?
Edith Fiore.
Edith
Fiore spelled Fiore.
I like to take notes and buy a lot of books. So I have too many. And then the 1890s airship. I have probably 3 or 4 books back there. Next time when someone's talking, I'll grab them so I can show the listeners or give them some good recommendations on some books to read. But no, that's phenomenal. It's really funny how a lot of people will either buy a book, watch a documentary, watch a TV show. You get some form of entertainment through media, whether it's paper or video, and people start making the connections to their personal lives. It's great. I know a lot of people that have done it. In fact, I'm one of those as well. I got my personal connection through In Search Of, which just seems to be a natural avenue in this world that we live in. But no, crazy. That's phenomenal. How was it being in college, or how open were you about your true intentions in college, like what you really wanted to look into?
Well, I think by the time I was actually doing my was in the master's program and then doing my PhD, I drifted into, again, more of a Keelian type position. Like by that stage, there was a period where I was very much all in on an ETH kind of interpretation. But the more I think you read, particularly if you throw your net wider when you're reading, I think the more difficult it is to stay in that ETH camp. It seems more and more unfulfilling as an explanation for the range of high strangeness which is associated, with the phenomenon. So when I got there, I was also very conscious. So A, I wasn't trying to push an ETH, bandwagon. B, I was also conscious I was in an academic space where I wasn't going to be able to write even like the people that I admired who'd come before me in the space, like a Keel or a Valet or a Patrick Harper or any of these kind of people. I knew I was going to have to do it as an historian. I was going to have to say, I'm not making any value judgment on the reality of this phenomenon. And to be honest, who the devil can, right? But what you can do as a historian is you can look at what type of cultural trends do you see matching up with the UFO phenomenon? What influences are there from the science of the day, from the military industrial complex of the day, the science fiction of the day? How does American UFO belief interconnect with American society itself? And to me, I think that was more valuable for me to do as an historian, because I think whatever the reality of the phenomenon, we can learn things if we start to see, even at a very basic level, that a lot of what witnesses describe seems to line up with either, if not the actual technology of the day, the imagined technology of the day. You mentioned the airship before, we both did. Airship reports tend to fit in with the idea of what heavier than aircraft was going to be like. It seems to kind of, fit in there. By the time people start having saucer sightings from Kenneth Arnold onwards, it's already been set by people like Raymond Palmer and other people in the science fiction field of what these craft from space might look like. And certainly on the covers of Amazing Stories, there are saucer-like vehicles. But this even extends before Amazing Stories. And then you can see the popularization of science fiction, alien invasion movies from the 50s onwards, kind of that and the UFO phenomenon seem to feed off themselves. Like, it's almost, sometimes it's like a chicken or an egg, what came first, the contactee movement or the day the earth stood still? Like, what are the influences on both of these things on each other? And I think if you look at it like that, I think it can, even though I was in the soft sciences, in the humanities, and so you can't really make some kind of, you want to just be a complete debunker skeptic, but what's the point? You might be able to say what the reality of the phenomenon is. You can certainly say, well, the phenomenon seems to be keeping pace with our cultural expectations. So that tells us something. What that tells us about the phenomenon is up for somebody else maybe to work out, but at least we can look at it in that, put it in that kind of perspective.
One more question before we bring Sam into the conversation here. Sorry, Sam. Have you done a comparison to how Americans look at this and the history of UFOs and flying saucers here in the United States compared to other parts of the world? I know Brazil is extremely heavily involved in anomalous objects and lights in the sky, and as is a plethora of other countries.
I haven't done an academic comparison. I haven't certainly put the type of, the hours of research into that. I know from a casual observation and just out of somebody who's very interested in the topic and has done a lot of reading in the topic that there are cultural differences. There were many stories from Brazil and other places in South America of people being killed by saucers, people being burnt horribly by saucers. Often the encounters with the saucers themselves seem to fit more within folkloric traditions than within a sci-fi trope. Like, even if you look at the Villaboa case, right? It seems far more there's more of a fairy element to that story than there is to the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, which would be the first one that was looked at seriously in the USA, for example. So there clearly does seem to be something about the culture that these things occur in, that the phenomenon, if it is an independent phenomenon, still seems to somehow be presenting itself to us the way we expect it. Of course, as we become more and more of a monoculture globally, when you have movies like Close Encounters and E.T. and The X-Files and on and on and on being consumed by people all around the planet, I think there's also then a homogenization more of the actual phenomenon and the experiences. But I think that's one of the things too. I do think it's worth looking at so many of those earlier cases, which we don't anymore. Today, when I say today, because I don't even consider myself as we, but today the culture and I suppose more respectable ufology and the media. I was talking to David Metcalf about this the other day, and Metcalf's one of the greater minds working in this space. And we totally agree that there's this ahistoricity today. So people today, the media in particular, and even the political class that is interested in this, likes to kind of take the Tic Tac videos and everything that happened in 2017 as ground zero, and then maybe refer to what they think is the importance of Roswell, even though Roswell wasn't important at all to the UFO community from 1947 until the early 80s. They never even talked about it. But they tend to telescope back to assume Roswell was this major event within ufology. You hear it in congressional hearings all the time. Congressmen go, well, the American public have been fascinated by UFOs since Roswell. No, they didn't care. Nobody paid attention to Roswell after the Air Force retracted the story the next day. Even ufologists never talked about it. But anyway, that's a little, I suppose, off topic. My point is that today the history isn't looked at. People don't go back and say, well, what were the contactees and people who were, I suppose, early abductees? What were they reporting in the late 40s throughout the 50s? Or even what were they reporting in the 1890s? Or what were they reporting 200, 300 years before that when they were having contact with the other, right? We tend to, today, the new respectable ufology is all about these supposedly metamaterials, which I doubt even exist, and alien bodies or biologics, shipped off somewhere, and the Tic Tac video and ATIP. And no, the history is this rich, broad tapestry that isn't even talked about anymore. And if you don't talk about it, you can't see this cultural shift, which is what I probably spent the better, decades of my life writing about and thinking about and researching, is that there has been this cultural connection, this historical connection for us to whatever we're experiencing, whether it's extraterrestrial or interdimensional or psychosocial, whatever it is. There's no doubt that we are innately connected with it, which I think is missed when you take 2017 to now out of complete historical context, except you reference, 1947 Roswell. But you just forget everything else.
Absolute brilliance. I love it. Dean.
Thanks, man.
No, it's a very, very intelligent answer, and it's a breath of fresh air. I'm not gonna go there. Real quick, just wanted to go ahead and give my recommendations for books on the 1800 airship phenomenon. This one here by Daniel Cohen. It is called The Great Airship Mystery, a UFO of the 1890s. This book was really good. And then coming in second and third place, The Great Texas Airship Mystery. It's okay. And I can't remember the first name of this guy, but his last name's Busby. And Solving the 1987 Airship Mystery. This was a really good one as well. But if anybody wants to do any reading on the airship phenomenon, this one right here by Daniel Cohen is a phenomenal read. Highly, highly recommend it. Put that aside, get that out of the way. Sam, how did you get into all of this, and how was it growing up in Wausau? How and did your hometown play an influence in this at all?
No. Dean got me into
No.
all. No, so no, I grew up being the barefooted kid on a farm, like laying on a trampoline looking in the skies, right? Like but I didn't delve into it any more than that. Like we did watch in all the scary shows and stuff growing up. So yeah, we did look into the skies. We always wanted to see something and we do have stories, like family stories, but it's not like you and Dean or anybody, but
You should tell a couple of those family stories.
You
It just
should
sounds fascinating.
absolutely tell a couple of those family stories.
which ones?
All of them.
All of them. Well, they're not all UFO like, what did we have at Elaine's house? We'd lay on the trampoline, we'd see things in the sky. She lived on a farm, which was mostly considered haunted, right? Like, it was haunted. But down the road from there was a crop circle incident that was interesting. Nobody fessed up to it ever. We all just assumed as kids, we assumed, like, "Oh, it was just people playing pranks, whatever." But, yeah, right down the road, there's a crop circle thing going on in the cornfield. So
Obviously aliens.
That's dope.
it was crazy though, because they were actually looking. They were trying to figure it out. The farmers were really upset because
Oh, I'm sure.
they were like, it wasn't that they couldn't figure it out is why they were upset. I don't think it destroyed too much, but they couldn't figure out how a person could take the time to snap and break each individual stalk in the size that it was and leave no, like, evidence or anything, but they like, everything was, like, twisted the same way,
Mhm.
and, like, so, like, they just couldn't figure it out. It was just
I saw a really good documentary. I don't get a lot of my research done through video, but I did watch this really good documentary on crop circles one time, and there was this weird, almost chemical reaction done in what they were referring to as the knuckle in the stalk of the corn, and it was always the in some of the crop circles, it was always almost a uniform distance from the soil. And if you could create this invisible horizon or plane at the where these stalks were turned down, they were all perfectly level, which, everyone's seen the explanation of people out there with 2x4s and a piece of rope and just kind of going about their business and turning down the crop circles. But there's parts and pieces of some of the incidents that just don't make sense. Like this, what seems to be like a chemical chain reaction inside of this knuckle at the base of the corn stalks that kind of explode, if you will, right? I've always wanted to look at a crop circle in person because I think it would just be absolutely mind blowing to just be there and look at some of the things that I don't think a lot of people would know to look for. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert just because I watched a documentary. Let's get that out of the way. But I've always thought it'd be absolutely fascinating. I'm waiting for a crop circle to pop up in the crop right next to Jake and I.
Have you heard of any crop circles though recently, like anywhere? I feel like growing up in like in the 90s and like there was always a story of a crop circle. But I
They
have
seem
not
to have
heard of
fallen out of
anything like
popularity
recent.
for sure.
So
Certainly.
not 100%, Jake. Uh, have they become less? Uh, yes, right. The frequency has definitely dropped. But so the main show for Infinite Rabbit Hole is kind of a news roundup of the last 7 days, and I come across a decent amount of crop circles, but there's not much to talk about when it comes to crop circles other than, hey, there's a weird symbol in the corn in this place in Scotland. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So there's no real story to it. So I kind of tend to just breeze right over them. Maybe we should start mentioning a few more of them, Jake.
You know, honestly, with the rise of the amount of people that have like drones and stuff, you'd honestly expect it to be more so because if people are doing it, then it'd be much easier because you can literally watch yourself doing it in your on your phone
Mhm.
or in your glasses and stuff. Be like, no, a little more to the left. Your lines are getting a little bit wobbly, right? And it's just like you'd expect it to be even more so. But
Well, there was a wonderful example of a crop circle that didn't make any sense, which millions of people saw recently, and that was in Disclosure Day, where for no reason a crop circle just starts in a field while the lead character's on the phone talking to the other female lead. Apparently, that's what happens in ufology. They just happen for no reason. If you believe Spielberg, they just boop, boop, they just start. It made about as much sense as the rest of the film, I suppose. I don't know.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you don't need to save it. Just go back and watch an
Oh,
episode of the X-Files or two, and you've seen it.
oh,
You've seen a
thank
better
you.
version of it, yeah.
oh, bummer. I'm not a big movie guy. I catch a lot of crap about it from the guys all the time, actually, because I've never seen Star Wars,
I'm
and that's
seriously surprised, and honestly, I don't really believe you that you watched a documentary on crop circles.
I did.
Like,
But it
I
was
don't
years
believe
ago.
you.
It was years ago. They don't have a book.
Oh,
They don't
okay.
have a book. Well, they probably do have a book on crop circles,
Probably do. You
but
should find it.
but I don't have one here. Out of all the 600 books that I have back here, not one of them's on crop circles.
I'll buy you a book on crop circles so you feel better.
Thanks, man. See, he cares, and that's
does.
why this works.
I watch film because I don't know how to read, so I rely on Jeremy to tell me what the books say because I don't.
Yeah. He bought my book, by the way, and ask him how far he got. Go ahead, Dean.
I read a couple lines of the back.
Oh my gosh.
I bought it the day it released on Amazon. I read a
It's the
couple lines
book.
from the back.
I met the head, Sam and I, when we were doing the latest home movie Legend Trip. We haven't released that episode yet, but we shot it not 4th of July weekend, but the weekend before. And we were at a private C5 event filming, and we met the director of Wisconsin MUFON, and he had an Infinite Rabbit Hole t-shirt on, and he was a big fan of you guys. He was a big fan of your book, Jeremy.
Yeah, he's I'm actually gonna be speaking at Wisconsin MUFON here coming up, and Dan Stair, I believe, is his name, right? Yeah, I can't wait for it. It's gonna be in Waukesha on the 18th. Just a shameless self plug there during your interview.
Well,
Sorry
the
about
cool
that.
part about that is that I
Um,
was there the first time he went to Elmwood, and I have heard him talk about it nonstop for the last 2 years. So I don't think I even need to read the book. I'm just gonna be like, oh, this is everything he's ever said to me. Like,
you do.
he's
You
like, I
do,
put your name in
because
there
there's so
14
much
times. It's
more
like,
in there.
great.
Yeah, there's that whole chapter.
Dark
There's that whole
Secrets of
chapter,
Jake.
Dark Secrets of Jake,
Yeah.
in there.
He
You
cuts
read Dark
people off on
Secrets
the
of Jake?
freeway. I've seen it.
I get angry
He
emails that
does.
this guy doesn't know how to
He's
drive
got at least
all
one.
the time. All right, enough about us. Let's this is a perfect segue into the project that you guys are doing together. So let's see, hold on. I had it. Where is it? There we go. Home movie legend trip. So this takes you into the locations where these stories live, right? You know what? Let's back up. Let's back up. let's not pretend that the listeners know what this is, right? Who could break it down for me? What is home movie legend trip?
I'll break it down because Sam will get mad with me if I throw it at her and make her break it down. She can then answer the
Look at her
following question.
laughing. She's
Well,
like, yeah, he knows.
well, to be honest, your listeners probably, when we've only just launched it, it's very new. And we were at an event with the Shaver Mystery short film called Contact Modalities, which is a wonderful UFO event down near where Bray Road is. And it was Delavan. Is that right, Sam? Yeah, it was Delavan. And we were showing that movie and we were talking about the short there. And we were like, we're going to go film a thing at Bray Road while we're down here. So it happened very quickly, the concept for it. And then we were like, well, we have a camera that kind of intentionally resembles analog 80s, 90s video. And then we thought, well, we can degrade that even more and we can shoot it like it's a tourist video instead of the way we normally shoot, documentary projects or narrative projects. We can shoot it just literally like we're tourists. And we can do one on Bray Road. And we shot it and it worked really well and it edited well. And we got interviews with Chad Lewis and Kevin Lee Nelson. And we happened to be at an event where Lowell Brower, whose University of Madison folklore department, was talking about his experiences as a child living in that area or as a teenager living in that area about the Beast of Bray Road. And so we had some nice talking head stuff in there as well. And we put it together and we thought, wouldn't it be fun? And a couple of reasons that probably, I think, occurred to both of us. So much even lower amateur level stuff. People try to do this high-end digital production with, even with AI stuff in it and with drone shots and with, CGI. And I mean, wouldn't it be fun if this just looked like it was literally a video that was shot in the 80s or 90s and just discovered on a thrift store shelf somewhere? Like just some, you put an old video in and this is what it is. And when we went, well, imagine if a crappy video distribution company in the 80s or 90s got a box of these and they just decided we're going to sell this just for what we've got a box of this couple doing these home movie legend trips. And so we thought we can do something which is like part paranormal documentary, but also part found footage horror movie. It kind of feels like both, and they're not all scary or anything, but it has that feel. And we thought nobody else is doing this. It's such, as you guys know, it's such a crowded space, the whole paranormal space. And we thought, well, this isn't just trying to do another, we're going to go and film a place and, be like, do a standard interpretation and, dissect it. We're just going to shoot like we're a couple going to places and shooting crappy video. And just somehow we bump into experts along the way. And it's not even explained why, but we have their talking head, also crappily shot videos in it. And that was the concept. And we've only just started. We've only dropped 2 episodes. We have a third ready to drop in about a week. We're coming to Elmwood where we're going to do one at UFO Days. And we have a number of other ones planned that we're going to do. So that was the concept anyway. That's the conceit.
Jeremy sent me that while I was working today. I had to work a little bit late and I was finishing up some paperwork. And so I had my earbuds in and I'm sitting there watching it on my phone. And I had no idea what I was watching. I thought that this was just, like you said, like a 80s home video of some Hodag festival and stuff. And I was enjoying it. I thought it was great. And I was just like, I didn't get it. Like, as far as like the hosts or the individuals we have coming on the show tonight, this is their project sort of a thing. I didn't get that. All I thought was like he was sending me something we were going to talk about, something to kind of brush up on and ask questions about. And so I absolutely loved it. I mean, it's just a few minutes long and I was just like watching along. I loved that they had the crate and the gun for all the kids and stuff, getting the Hodag back in line and everything. But it was like absolutely phenomenal. Like, yeah, if you could roll the different festivals and do the same thing, or incorporate maybe things that don't necessarily have their own festivals and stuff. I mean, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Like even if you were to do kind of branch off into the realm of like, oh, we're going to go searching for the Jersey Devil or something like that, right? And then but make it in that style so that it's like fun and it looks old and stuff like that, right? It's just like it absolutely fits the space. I thought it was really well done for just like because that's exactly what I thought it was. So to hear that it's it's not, it just made to look like it was fantastic. Bravo.
Thanks, man. It's funny you mentioned Jersey Devil as well. Sam and I were literally talking about, because the Shaver Mystery played at the Jersey Devil Film Festival a couple of years ago, so we were there, and we are like, let's submit our new film to Jersey Devil as well. Then we have a reason to go to the festival, and then we can go into the Pine Barrens
Right.
and do an episode of Home Movie Legend Trip.
Yes, absolutely. You have to. No, you have to. That's awesome. No, I think it's charming. It was great. It was really good. It was refreshing because it's different. It's different, and it's I'm drawing a blank, and I'm gonna feel stupid when I finally think of the word. Nostalgic. There it is.
Thank you.
It really is. And at the same time, it's nice because the amount of care that you guys put into it is obvious. It's obvious that you guys are sorry. I just worked 14 hours, so I'm
That's so good, man.
tripping
Well,
over
yeah,
my.
the post-production takes the longest. Like, to make it look the way it looks is as Sam will tell you, the shooting's the fun part. It's when we have to go and let's make sure this looks exactly like what we want it to look like. So it does take a lot of time to do that. But it's fun.
It comes off as you guys are very proud of it, and it is a very nice piece. I watched the Beast of Bray Road one today too.
Thank you.
Very similar to Jake. I was just finishing up on some paperwork, and I threw it on, and I have to ask, what was the thing in the shed?
Well, that'd be spoiling it. But I will tell you this. We did not set that up at all. That was there. We saw
Really?
that and we filmed it. Absolutely.
So that was authentic.
That
the
was
reaction to it and everything.
100% authentic. That was there. We saw it and we went, what on earth? And we filmed.
So did you actually go up there? And
No, hell no. We didn't go up there.
Come on.
No, we did not go up there. It was thanks to
It's not
Jake.
the friendliest of areas, so no, there's no way we would have gone up there. Like, you could just feel the friendliness that does not exist in, like, the Bray area.
Tell the van story, Sam, because you were driving. I was too busy.
I was
looking through the
not
van.
happy. No, it was the weirdest thing. So I'm driving. He's like, filming. He's all happy in his happy place, and I'm like, there was a car. We turned off. I think we were we might have been just leaving or like on our way out, but we were still on Bray Road. And all of a sudden, this van comes out. I didn't even see where it came from. And we're in the middle of nowhere, right? You can see when there's traffic behind you or around you. Like, you're on this little road. A van comes up, and it's on my tail. Like, on my tail. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, Dean, look. I don't think you even listened to me. I think you just ignored me the whole time. Like, "Ugh." Yeah. But it was, like, on my tail. But I think as soon as we, like, crossed this certain, like, threshold of Bray Road, like, it just, like, it did a U-E at 55 and just, like, left us alone. I'm like, so it was like, I don't know if it was chasing us out, but even when we pulled in, I think we might have been in front of a truck or something, and he didn't seem to like us either. He went around me. He pulled in, and we ended up having to pull in his driveway to turn around because we had gone too far. Yeah, there's, like, no, like, friendly, like, Midwest like, there was, like, no, like, "Hey," like, nothing. It was
They
yeah,
probably
Midwest.
get a lot of people on that road.
I'm sure.
But we didn't see any on that road while we were on that road.
I think it might be an
And we were there on a
accumulation.
weekend. It was a Sunday.
That's
So
true.
you'd think, because even on a Sunday, people leaving or coming and
It
going
could've-
from other areas and, like, the
It
bigger
could have been
cities
so much
around.
better
There
had
was
Dean
nothing there.
had yelled out the window and then they heard his accent and really knew that you guys weren't from there. It made the interaction so much better.
I was so mad I didn't film that van because I was
Yeah.
literally, Sam's right, I was oblivious and I was filming out the window. I wish I'd filmed the van. It would have been a different story then, us being chased out of Bray Road by some van filled with Satanists who called up the creature or something. Who knows how the episode
Well, and
would
it's
have
weird.
gone.
And trust, I've been down many a gravel road where there's, like, people and you go to places where like, oh, that guy's not friendly, you stay away from there, but you never get, like, chased off of a road. Like, you just don't.
So,
Yeah, it's weird.
did you end up going past that barn or garage again? And was whatever there's still there?
No, we went there before we went out. We went to that area because Jay Bachochin, who you might be aware of, he has his three I know you're not a big movie fan, but he has his 3 documentaries, Finding Jay. He's been a guest on my show a couple of times. Super nice guy. When we were at Contact Modalities Expo, he was a speaker there and he had a booth there and we hung out with him. I never met him in person, so we hung out with him and we talked to him for a while. And we were like, hey, we're going to go to Bray Road and film some stuff today. And he was the person who advised us, and he was the person who pointed us at that area where the barn was. And he said, be careful, there's portals there. Like, it's a weird place. I've been there and I've had like literally missing time when I've been there.
I wonder if it's a prop. There's the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, well, if I lived on Bray Road, what would I do? I'd probably put a beast of Bray Road in my barn and make it just so that you could just barely see it.
Right.
It would be fun.
Well, there's the other beast prop on Bray Road as well. You know,
Yeah.
that's in the video as well. Like some just somebody with a suburban-y looking front yard there on Bray Road has that big 7-foot tall statue of
Yeah.
the beast there, which appears in the documentary. You know, the weird thing though about there, and I didn't really I might have mentioned it briefly when we were there, just when Sam and I were chatting, but I really thought about it more when we went to the Hodag Festival in Rhineland, when we were talking to the guys who run the Hodag Festival, Kerry and Ben. And they were making the point of, because Bray Road came up, and they were like, what a missed opportunity it is for that community. Like, Rhinelander has gone, you know, all in with the Hodag. Point Pleasant has gone all in with the Mothman. Like, there's stores and museums and festivals and all of this stuff. Bray Road, in fact, when Sam and I were there, I think there was a little industrialish area at one end of it, and I'm like, man, if I owned a gas station or something around here, I'd be selling Bray Road t-shirts, I'd be doing Bray Road tours, like, but I don't know if the community just don't want to encourage. Maybe that's why the van chased us out of there. Maybe they don't like the idea of people there, but it's a missed opportunity. There could be, you know, somebody could make bank with a little Bray Road, you know, tourist shop there. I would have bought a t-shirt, you know, if there was a, I've been to Bray Road and seen the beast or something t-shirt, you know, I would have bought it.
Yeah. We actually lost a major voice in the whole Bray Road story. Linda Godfrey. She passed away a few years ago now. And
she coined the term, the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah, it's I've recommended her books more times than I can count on this show, and I'll continue to do so. But I wonder if losing her played a part in not making that a bigger part of, let's say, the 40 in Americana, if you will.
Maybe that's a good point. And Linda was a lovely lady. I got to spend a little time with Linda. We world premiered her directorial debut, which was a feature called Return to Wildcat Mountain. We premiered it at the festival I run, Midwest Weird Fest. I think a year or two before she died. She directed it with her son, and it was about Black Panthers in the Kettle Moraine area, I think. I think that was the area it was in. It was a fantastic documentary, and she was one of the sweetest people I've ever encountered. And to be somebody, how many people can say they coined the name of, you know, a nationally or internationally known cryptid? There can't be many people who have that claim to fame.
Yeah, we lost a good one with the loss of Linda.
For sure.
Dean,
Really
what's your shirt size? I make all the merch for Infant Rabbit Hole, and I'll make you a shirt that says, I went to see the Beast of Bray Road, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
Man, that's fantastic. I'm a large baby. I'll rock that thing.
He does. Show him the shirt that you're wearing now. The world famous, most okayest podcast.
No, I spent a good majority of our early years designing in the ballpark of 50 different shirts. We finally had to slim everything down on the store because it was just overwhelming if you went to it. And we kept some good ones, but yeah, I really enjoyed doing it. So yeah, I'll make you a t-shirt for it. So since you couldn't buy one there.
Man, I would love that. I made this shirt.
Shavertron.
Yeah. Have you guys ever read Richard Toronto's wonderful fanzine that ran you can buy it in collected, like 4-volume set now, the Shavertron set. of like his fanzines. He
Nope,
kind of
didn't.
tried to keep the Shaver story alive, and he did after he knew Richard Shaver, and after Richard Shaver passed in the mid-70s, I think in about 78, Richard Toronto, who now is a very good friend of mine, started Shavertron. And he's the main biographer of Shaver and Palmer now. So he's written a wonderful book, The War Over Lemuria, or War Over Lemuria. He's written Shaverology. He's written 2 books on Richard Shaver's rock phogo, his rock art. So, but Shavertron was probably the greatest fanzine ever made. It was just literally about Shaver type stuff. Phenomenal. So I asked Richard, can I make a Shavertron t-shirt? Like, I want to wear it in the documentary. He was like, yeah, that's fine. You can make a Shavertron t-shirt. People should buy that book. It's amazing.
Yeah. I'll buy it tonight.
You're going
I
to
buy a
love
lot
it.
of books.
Yeah, you will love this book. It's just fantastic. That's been essentially my guide when I've done the documentary. And Richard Toronto has since come on in a full producerial capacity, and it's why I have all kinds of treasures in the documentary. Like I have original audio recordings of Richard Shaver, not the one where he was on Long John Nebel that anybody can get, but personal audio recordings of Shaver. Because of Richard Toronto is the person who has them, photos, personal writings. Richard Toronto has been very generous with his time and his materials, but he knows more about Shaver than anybody on the planet. And he knew Richard Shaver too. So,
Well, this is a good segue into the Shaver mysteries and everything that goes with it. So for listeners who have never heard of the name Raymond Palmer, which if you're a longtime listener of the show, we've talked about him a lot. Can you give us the essential version of who he was and why he matters to this conversation?
sure. John Keel called Raymond Palmer the man who invented flying saucers in a 40 Times article in, I think it was winter. I have the issue. I think it was winter 1980 or winter 1981 issue of 40 Times back in the day. But John Keel wasn't the only person who said Ray Palmer invented flying saucers. The arch skeptic Donald Menzel suggested the same thing. Multiple other people back in the day when we had more of an historical sense of the phenomenon or the ufology than we do today. Even the FBI, in fact, in one of the recent UFO file drops or UAP file drops that were available on the Department of War webpage, it was available before that anyway, but it was redacted. Now it's no longer redacted. We always knew what it said, but the FBI agent's report, who interviewed Richard Shaver, said it's quite conceivable that Raymond Palmer and Richard Shaver invented flying saucers to sell more copies of their magazine, Amazing Story. So even the FBI was saying Raymond Palmer was probably the man who invented flying saucers. It's a little bit hyperbolic, but it's true to the extent that as America's leading science fiction magazine in the 1930s into the 1940s was a magazine called Amazing Stories. It was a pulp science fiction magazine, and it had been saved from destruction by Raymond Palmer. It was on the brink of collapse. It had been sold by the owners, and it had been bought by a publishing company called Ziff Davis, which was named after the 2 owners of the company, Mr. Ziff and Mr. Davis. And Raymond Palmer, who prior to that had just been a major significant fan in growing fandom when fandom was only probably 1,000 people, not like it is today, tens of thousands or millions of people. He was hired as the editor on the recommendation of somebody else that they suggested they offered the editorship to. They said, no, you should hire Raymond Palmer. So he turned this magazine around, which was on the brink of collapse. Its circulation was less than 20,000. Palmer got it up to over 135,000, which was healthy. And then, and this is, I'll try to do it very quickly, he received a letter from somebody called Richard Shaver, and Richard Shaver suggested he discovered this ancient pre-diluvial, i.e. pre-flood, alphabet, which was essentially the English alphabet, but every letter had a secret meaning. So A meant, one thing, B meant another thing, D meant detrimental, T meant integrative, E meant energy. So he had this whole type of idea that you could look at a word, use his alphabet, and you could break down the secret meaning of the word.
Yep.
Anyway, some readers, thought it was nonsense. Some readers were excited about it. It generated a lot of interest. And while one of his associate editors said, throw it in the trash, and he did, Palmer fished it out of the trash, and he told his associate editor to run it in full in this issue of Amazing Stories. It's little glossy because it's in a bag. But so they ran this issue by Richard Shaver in Full and Amazing Stories, that letter. And so that's had, like I said, this incredible response from fans. And so Palmer reached out to Shaver and said, "Do you have anything else?" And then Shaver sent Palmer a 10,000-word essay called A Warning to Future Man, which essentially spelled out this crazy cosmology that the Earth had ancient, advanced spacefaring civilizations prior to the flood, that most of those people had fled the planet and left behind some other folks that essentially went into the caverns to escape the rays of which the sun shot out, which were radioactive and poison, and some of them became hideous and cruel, and some of them became good. And Palmer changed that cosmology into a story. There's the Lemurian alphabet, exactly. So you can see A is animal and B is to be. C is like to see, D is detrimental, which became a core part of the story because the Deros were detrimental robots, and R meant like a controlling influence, as you can see there, a dangerous quantity or something, whatever it is. And so that story Palmer rewrote as I wrote as, oh, actually, no, I picked up the wrong issue. This is the All Shaver issue, so we'll skip to this quickly. Palmer published the initial story as I Remember Lemuria. It became this incredibly successful story. It drove Amazing Stories eventually up to 250,000 readership. And remember, it was 20,000 when he bought it. And it culminated in 1947, June of 1947, in the All Shaver mystery issue of Amazing Stories. This issue was on the newsstands when Kenneth Arnold had his first sighting over Mount Rainier of 9 strange objects, which eventually the press picked up and ran it as flying saucers. So the significance of the Shaver mystery is manifold. One of them is that Palmer had already, in a science fiction magazine, he'd always said Shaver stories were probably true, and there was always debate between the readers. There was always this idea that we were already engaged with these spacefaring civilizations, and aliens were still coming back and interacting with the Deros and interacting with us. But in that issue that was on the newsstands when Arnold had his sighting, there's a famous article called, well, it should be famous, it's not really, perhaps in some circles, called Visitors from the Void by Vincent Gaddis. Vincent Gaddis was one of the great Forteans at the time. So Amazing Stories had already started running articles, which were Fortean articles that had nothing to do with science fiction. And in that issue, Vincent Gaddis's piece, Visitors from the Void, was essentially about flying saucers before we had the term flying saucers. It was an historical overview of strange things from elsewhere visiting the skies. So Palmer had already had a circulation by this time of 250,000, and at magazines, normally there's a circulation of 250,000. As if you've ever advertised in a magazine, the magazine ad seller will tell you, well, that means we're actually read by, 4 million people because it's in doctors' offices and it's at a family's house, and the mother reads it, and the father reads it, and the son reads it, and the neighbor reads it, and not to mention people on newsstands, and often on the back of Palmer's, I'm just going to see if there's one here, often on the back of the magazines, there'd be all these kind of weird illustrations as well of like spacefaring beings. And often it would be like ancient astronaut stuff, like, did these people in Central America disappear because they were taken by, people from outer space? And there'd be a picture, of a flying saucer type craft landing and people getting into it. So Palmer had set the tone for everything that was to come going forward. And as we mentioned, as your listeners will all know, Kenneth Arnold is really ground zero of the modern flying saucer movement. He's the person who saw those 9 objects near Mount Rainier on June 24, 1947. His story got picked up by the newswires all around the world. Palmer, already being a major promoter of this stuff, did the genius thing. He contacted Kenneth Arnold and hired Kenneth Arnold to write for him. So the major witness of flying saucers, the most famous arguably in the history of saucers, became somebody who began to write for Raymond Palmer. Raymond Palmer sent him to investigate the Maury Island incident, which is really the first well-known back then flying saucer crash story before Roswell was well-known. And then Palmer in 1948 releases a magazine that's still available, the world's first newsstand paranormal magazine, Fate magazine. And that story has that cover has the famous story of Kenneth Arnold's sightings. And Palmer continued to beat the drum of flying saucer and UFOs more aggressively than anybody in the country. And I didn't have these here ready for your show, but I had them here because I'm doing some research at the moment. And he launched Flying Saucers magazine a number of years later, the first and only at the time newsstand magazine on flying saucers. So Raymond Palmer was the person who probably promoted ufologies and UFO belief, flying saucers, more than anybody in America for the first 20, 30 years of the phenomenon, of the cultural experience. So you can't even talk about this without talking about Raymond Palmer. But the sad thing is today, most people happily talk about this without.
I have to give props to Sam. You definitely have this cheerier, more, not saying that you're not interested in the other stuff, but man, this is on a whole nother level.
It's a different level completely. I think the first week that we knew each other, he was already introducing me to Paul, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea." But I think I like his story. I don't have to read, just like your partner here, because I listen to him, so I don't have to read books. I
Isn't
don't
it
have to watch
great?
movies.
Gosh,
He just tells
I
me
surround
everything,
myself with these
so
people. I don't need anything.
It
I'm
is
just like, "So what's going
amazing.
on today?" And they just freak out.
I'm not a big movie person. Right. Yeah, I'm not a movie person, and Dean will tell you, which is crazy because he is. He's really into film. Like, he likes to watch everything. I'm not. But no, this story, and I'm interested, I think, on a different level, obviously, than Dean, but he's more culturally like, how does this impact everything? Where I'm like, I just want to hear the story of the people, which has gotten me hooked, I guess. So
Well, it's a good
it's
balance
still
too.
fun to
That's your
listen.
approach. It's a good balance, I think, that you have that
I
more
think
healthy approach.
maybe.
Yeah, but it's not without the obsessive approach that we don't start getting the connections that you're really starting to make here, Dean. Like the whole cultural impact prior to 1947. It's something that we in this niche completely forget about. It's a completely forgotten era. I mean, anybody that you talk to, it really does jump. And if anybody even knows about it, but it jumps from the 1890s airships straight to
Kenneth Arnold.
Kenneth Arnold. Thank you. And that's Kenneth Arnold is known as the genesis of the modern UFO era, right? Anything and anyone that we learn about, talk about on any kind of mainstream stage starts there in 1947 up till now, where the Shaver mystery really does fill that hole. It creates that base layer where everything that we now talk about in abundance is really built on.
Right.
It's incredible, and it's great that we have somebody such as yourself that has taken the time to really dive into this stuff, because I can't. I know the amount of time that I spend on the stuff that I obsess over with, and the way that you talk about this stuff. It's got to be on a completely different level.
Well, it's probably the same level. It's just a different topic. I think I can tell how, by your book, UF Elmwood, I can tell how much research you've done in this space and on a niche thing, which is such an important story. And I'm as an historian who's dealt in this space for, decades. I was unaware of the significance of Elmwood until I read your book. So I think you hit those same levels as I do. And it's so important. I can't emphasize this enough. It's so important if you're interested in UFOs today, if you're interested in UAPs or what's going on today, to try to understand that out of a broader historical context, which goes back for a very long time, you're doing yourself a disservice. And you don't actually know enough about the topic to feel that you could form an educated opinion unless you go back and look at some of these stories. And then you can say, how does this fit in to what I think about it? How does this fit into everything I'm being told told by the media, everything I'm being told by the government? How does my current modern conception, which is probably formed and formulated by my interactions with media today, how does this actually connect with a long history of this type of phenomenon? Going back to Arnold's initial report and prior to Arnold's initial report. And if you don't do that, you're just doing yourself a misservice as somebody who's interested in this stuff. If you're interested in something truly, just do a little research. It's there. It's not gonna come to you on Fox News or CNN or wherever you're getting it from. You're gonna have to go and look at some older books. It's probably not even gonna come from the best-selling book on UFOs today. You're gonna have to go and look at these, like you were saying, the 1897 airship books or the Arnold and Palmer and Shaver stuff. Like, you have to go back and read some of this stuff. And while you're at it, maybe say, "Hey, does this sound like fairy faith?" Well, I'll go and pick up a book about fairies from,
Yes.
150 years ago and see if there's correlations here.
I was just gonna make that connection with the Fey folk. The connections that you're drawing to modern ufology, uh it's I have a parallel obsession with screen memories. I love the concept of screen memories and how that fits into alien abduction lore, ufology. Mike Cleland did an absolute amazing set of books called The Messengers.
Yeah, they're good books.
Oh, they're phenomenal, absolutely. And it was actually I got a tattoo. This is actually an owl
Oh, wow.
right here inside of the gray alien head. And that's literally a tattoo that's based off the concept from Mike Cleland's books about the connection between owls and UFOs and alien abductions. Um, so just listening to you and talk about the Shaver mystery and how that could have literally been the resonating point for a lot of the things that we talk about today, my mind goes to, geez, I wonder if there's some sort of connection there between screen memories and if there's a psychologist out there that has done that research.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there is. And how far you can go back to that is back to the Fey folk.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing stuff. I'm sorry. I love to sit here and just make these silly connections in my head.
No, it's not a silly connection at all. The things that the other crowd, the good neighbors, the Fae, the fair folk, the she, whatever we want to call them. One of the things which was most recognized within particularly the Irish tradition was that they cast essentially a glamour. Like, what you saw was not what you experienced. So today, if your average American is driving home through the backwoods and they see like a dome-shaped craft in the middle of a field and little gray men come out of it, they assume that's what they're seeing because seeing is believing. We're told that all the time, right? But you were taught in fairy faith, in those traditions, which had very rich and very almost codified, perspectives on all of this, that what you were seeing was probably not what you were experiencing. So the beautiful fairy maiden might be an old crone. The gorgeous feast served before you might just be horse manure. The fairy palace that you were eating it in might be a hole in the ground, a cave in the ground. One of the essential parts about the fairies, about the fair folk, was that they could manipulate you and tell you lies. So firstly, you shouldn't have anything to do with them. You certainly shouldn't go out at times where you're likely to encounter them walking home from a game of cards late at night. You shouldn't go out on the quarter days. You specifically should not go out around the solstices or the equinoxes. You should not be doing anything at that period because the Fae are out everywhere. But if you do encounter them, there are rules and there's ways to engage them. And you certainly shouldn't believe what you see. But who's taught that today? We're taught all kinds of stranger danger things as children and everything else. Nobody's teaching us how do you behave if you have an interaction with the other, whatever the other is. Nobody's telling you what should you do and what's the deception that you're being perhaps presented with. So I think we've lost an awful lot of I guess the machinery or the process of how to deal with these things when we encounter them, or an understanding of how they operate. It's all been stripped from us. And particularly more so, I think, in the whole science fiction era of ufology than at any previous time, because this is all technological, right? This is all like just metal crafts from outer space. There's nothing strange about it. It's just science tells us that. So we're in this time and in this space where the older traditions that we would have been taught hundreds of years ago have been just submersed beneath this scientific paradigm of, well, none of that's true, but maybe there are ETs visiting us from, this galaxy or this star system.
I just think it's incredible how the phenomenon modernizes. Dean, I'm going to stop myself before I go down a rabbit hole that we're going to be talking about for the next 3 hours. Jake, do you have any questions, bud? Come on, you got to have something. Can't let me.
Well, I don't have any questions, but I agree. I agree with what Dean just said. Yes. No, I'm not.
Always taking the
I'm
shortcuts.
listening. I'm trying to engage without dominating the
Does
conversation.
that feel familiar, Dean?
And I'm looking at all these resources that you guys keep throwing out, so I'm getting my education. I'm reading the titles at the very least.
I'm writing everything down right here so I could do it later. I have actually 3 pages of notes now. Thanks, Dean.
You should read Eddie Lenihan's book, The Other Crowd, I think it's called. Eddie Lenihan is probably the greatest living collector of modern fairy stories, and maybe the greatest living true folklorist in the sense that the Grimm brothers were folklorists. But Eddie Lenihan's work in fairy faith is phenomenal. Like, I think you'd read it and you'll find things of real worth in that book.
Looking for parallels. That's where I like to see the connections and things.
Joshua Cutchin's books as well, by the way, if you haven't read Cutchin's book.
I have. Are you talking about Where the Footprints End?
Well, Where the Footprints End, and then Ecology of Souls, and I haven't read his, and I should have, I've been so busy. He has his new book, is it like Fourth Wall Phantoms or something? And then there's another one he did even more recently than that. So I've been slack. Ecology of Souls was the last one. Ecology of Souls is the masterwork. So
I have the Where the Footprints End series. And I have
Timothy Renner.
I have another one. I can't think of off the top of my head which one it is. I gotta pick up a few.
Cutchin would be a great guest for you as well. One of the greatest thinkers in the space today.
I have a list a mile long of people that I would love to talk about. And I would actually love to have you guys back on at some point, because
anytime, man.
Literally only scratched the surface on this stuff. And I think, if we can get you guys back on, we can really dive into things. The problem with tonight was that there's so many things to talk about with you guys. It's like, where do we go? So I think we got a good introduction. Everyone kind of has an idea that you guys kind of do everything. So maybe we do an episode where we talk about just the Shaver mystery and the Deros, and then another one where we talk about your guys' projects and everything.
Be happy.
Which I'm extremely excited to see all the other stuff that comes out. The one on the Hodag and the one on Beast of Bray Road was just absolutely phenomenal. It was great.
I just can't wait to shoot one with you when I'm in Elmwood.
With me.
Sam and I are both excited about that.
I'm gonna ruin that.
You'll be amazing.
Yeah.
Jake's
I'm going to
make
embarrass
sure
the
I
heck
do.
out of him.
Oh, if
The
Jake's
first
there,
time
he'll
he
be there as
did
well, so be ready,
public
Jake.
speaking thing at Elmwood, I did my job. I hyped everyone up. I got everyone excited. I was making people laugh. And then I turned the crowd on him. I was like, look at how embarrassed he is. And they all just looked at him. I was like, boo this man. And oh man, he just wanted to crawl inside of his skin and hide like a potato bug.
Oh gosh.
I am
so
nice. Just
you
in
seem
my
so
own
nice,
way.
Jake.
He's not.
Yeah.
So what are best friends for? Let me
Worse
tell
off
you.
than you were before for your first public speaking engagement.
And people
Yeah.
should come to UFO Days this year in Elmwood, because I'll be there doing I'll be screening my Shaver Mystery short film. Sam will be there. We'll be talking about the Shaver Mystery Part 2, as we like to call it, about when Shaver actually found what he believed was archaeological proof of these ancient pre-diluvial underground civilizations. And you'll be there, of course, Jeremy, doing your bus tour of Elmwood, which we can't
Well,
wait
I'll
to
tell
go
you
on.
what,
So people should go to
you
UFO
show up.
days. That'd be fantastic. I'd
I've
love
been
to meet.
working on a project. We made UFOs based off of Officer Wheeler's sketch from
Wow.
'76. So this has been weeks worth in the making, and so I've been making them in different sizes, and I've finally got the size that I
Wow.
can make it to get all the detail, but it's small enough, and putting in little holes to turn them into fridge magnets. So if you show up, I'll give you one of these. I'll give you both one.
Jake, I would love one of those, but I would love even more for you to tell me that story and show me that
Oh,
on
yeah?
camera
All right.
for Home Movie Legend.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna maybe Jeremy can point fingers
I'm great
at
at
you
public
and laugh.
speaking.
Yes.
I don't get embarrassed.
In
Throw
fact,
you off.
I'll
help
Yeah.
him.
that's not true. I think we should throw him in a box and shoot him up with a smoke gun. And then we'll have a poor little kid come up to him
Yeah,
and be like,
Hodex
do you,
style.
do you
Jake
see
in there?
Jake in there?
Put the
Do you see him in
camera
there?"
in. Yeah.
I gotta share this real quick. I love sharing this. This is
Yeah.
the sketch.
That's the sketch,
of,
and this
of
is
the
what
George
we've turned it
Wheeler
into.
craft. So
That's fantastic.
So,
here,
Both.
I mean,
let me get rid of
obviously,
the
it's
sketch. Jake, hold it up to the
I
camera.
printed it in 2 pieces, and then this one came out, and it has the appendage or the hose at the bottom, and that's kind of like the hallmark of it. And so I was like, how do I do this in a way
It's the
that it can
black
sit on
appendage.
its feet, but also have this little black appendage? 'Cause I've worked on it so much. The last thing I want to do is be like, oh, let's go back to editing. And so I was like, I could turn this into a fridge magnet and just float on your fridge. And I was like, oh, that would be sick. So I started working on that. So yeah, I mean, we'll end up getting big ones for the studios and stuff, like a whole piece. But this is basically how that ended up.
Wow.
So it has the
Can you please
oh,
bring that
yeah, no,
so I
I'll
can
bring
film
all
you
my
telling me that
all my
story
little
and showing it?
models and stuff, but I'm probably gonna be printing out somewhere in the ballpark of like 50 of them and just see how they do. So I'm gonna get started on that pretty
Wow.
soon here, so I can have them ready for it. But yeah,
He's the artist of the group, and trust me, he's come a long way. He's come a long way.
An
Yeah.
impressive looking saucer.
You should have seen his first round of artwork for the podcast. Let's see, he drew the country of Finland sitting on top of Minnesota.
Dude, by far my favorite shirt I've designed is just, it's so simple. It says Bigfoot approves, and he's got this super cartoony face, and he's sticking his thumb out,
Oh,
and it's
gosh,
like got this
dude.
ring around it, and it's protruding out of the ring, and it's just like it's superimposed in front of his face, and it's just like this big goofy smile, and it's by far my favorite shirt.
Yep. Okay, but
What?
tell him the rest of it, Jake. Go ahead. Jake.
Oh shit.
You know you are.
One of our old co-hosts said, you know, it would be really funny. And I was like, what would be really funny? And he said, if you gave this thing
Sorry, this is inappropriate, by the way.
huge
just so you know.
pepperoni nipples. And so I was like, that would be very funny. And so I looked online and I found a bodybuilder that had these like crazy, psychotically long nipples. And I made a design that matched those, and I put them on either side. So there is a shirt that I don't have because I don't think I can wear it in public. But I mean, the Bigfoot has, he's got pecs, right? You can see him. I designed it so you can see him under the hair, but he's got these monster nipples that are like fingers that are also superimposed and pointing outside of the ring. If Jeremy's pulling it up in the merch store, he can show you all, but it's like, it's chaotic.
No, I don't think it's on the
Terrible
merch
this
store
thing
anymore.
is.
Oh gosh. That should be a bestseller on your merch store.
I'm
Right.
trying to see if we
Yeah.
have any history of this thing still existing.
We didn't even get Sam
Oh,
to tell her
let's hear
Bigfoot
it.
story or her family's Bigfoot story. That might have to wait for another episode.
Oh, come on. There's always time.
If you tell me yours, I'll tell you mine.
It's not that crazy.
Mine's not that crazy either. But I'll tell you.
It's okay. Okay. But I want to see that T-shirt at some point.
I'm
Um,
working on it. I promise.
right,
She's
Just
gonna be in the middle of like this
bust up
really
laughing.
super serious story, and all of a sudden,
right, and then all of a sudden, giant, yeah, Bigfoot nipples. No, I think there was 2. Was there 2? I think there was 2 from Dad that we
Yeah, they're
had.
your dad's stories, but they're your family
Yeah,
stories. So.
well, my family stories, yeah. So my grandpa, when we grew up, my grandpa's property was it's 80 acres and it's still there, but we didn't have indoor plumbing there. It was an outhouse. Like, that's what it was. And grandpa went out to the outhouse one night, and um he's a sailor, like he's in the Navy, he's big and like, burly and mean, whatever, not afraid of much. And he was in the outhouse, and he looked up through the outhouse and saw like 3, like, or 2, sorry, 2 red glowing eyes at him. And he had no idea what it was, but it scared him. It scared him enough where he ran back to the house, and everybody was like, "Oh, grandpa never gets scared." But so he thinks that was a Bigfoot. And then I think I don't know if it was before or after that, when dad and it was an uncle of mine and a friend of my dad's, I think, that went deer shining, and it was maybe a mile down the road from their property. And mind you, they've lived there their whole lives. They hunt, they're in the woods. It's country, but they were deer shining, and there was 2 eyes, but they were up high enough. I think, what did you say, like 7 or 8 feet high, and it wasn't like a bear. They've seen bear, but it was like on its hinds. Yeah, and dad freaked out. And my dad never used to believe in this stuff ever, but that night he was terrified, like absolutely terrified. But they can't, to this day, they can't figure out what it was. It was just like on its hind, like it was nothing that they've ever seen before. And
what
again, they live in the woods. They live in the country.
what did he do in the Navy?
My grandpa,
Yeah,
I know he was a um part of the fire fighting, like if there was like a fire on the
damage
boat.
damage controlman.
Okay. And then there was something else that whatever, but
Jake
I
and
know he was released because he got a scar from like here to here, and they
yeah,
started training him for like the submarines or whatever, and he was all excited, and then all of a sudden, like, he couldn't go because the scar was too big or something.
yeah, they'll do that. Jake and I met in the Navy,
Oh.
so
Oh, thank you for your
What are your
service too,
Navy
Jake.
Thank you.
tattoos? Because my
Yeah.
grandpa never explained to me, because by the time, like, I could see his tattoos, he was too wrinkly, and he would never tell me what they were.
there's a rich history of tattoos in the Navy and them having meaning. Was it on his arm?
Yes.
Was it a ship?
He just
I don't
cover it
know
up.
what he
You're like,
never
"Don't
I
look."
don't know what we could never make it out, and he'd always just pretend like he would always pretend like he was, like, this tough guy, and he's like, "You don't need to know what that is," and, like, it was a story for him, but I know it was something, but he would never tell me.
It was a
That's what it
topless
was,
dancing
yeah.
woman from Tahiti.
He's like,
is
"Look,
what
I
it
can
was.
make her
Probably.
move. I can make her flex."
Probably.
Yeah, you flex and make her dance.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I
well, show 'em
found
the
the
PC
PC version.
Yeah,
Or the
you'll
P-
just
the
have to
PG
imagine
version,
how
or whatever you wanna
glorious it
call it.
is. The other version.
Here is the so yeah, it was
Yeah.
just that, but much
cool.
more inappropriate.
I want the nipple one, though.
He
Where's the nipple
deleted
one?
all my
Yeah,
stuff.
I
thanks.
can't
Slimmed
find it,
down and deleted
Jake.
all my beautiful artwork. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, why didn't you
'Cause I
save your own
suck, I
stuff?
guess.
Like, you should have been like, "This is my artwork."
This is the one he
Um,
made for Dinosaurs
I
Are
like
Fake.
I like the one, the Patty
Don't worry,
one
kids.
with
Jeff says I'm
Patty
fake.
wearing our shirt. That one down there. That was my second favorite. Same goofy smile, wearing our shirt, listening to our podcast on his little phone right there.
I wonder if
Gosh,
I can
that's so
zoom in on
old,
this,
man.
because this is look, it's literally a screenshot from Spotify.
That is so old. That's crazy. Okay, I'll tell you my story. He was actually on the way here to Wisconsin. I was finishing up my Navy time in Southern California, and my wife got here in Menominee, Wisconsin, a few months before I did. I had to finish up my Navy time and then also pack up the rest of our stuff and load my motorcycles into a trailer, amongst other things. And we were living in base housing, so I had to like wait to the last day, give them the keys. They did the inspection. I got my truck and I rolled out. but I drove all the way across on, I guess I guess the 40 now. It used to be a 66, and so I went all the way across the South and basically got right up underneath Wisconsin and went straight up from there. But when I was driving through Oklahoma, um, I mean, granted, it was me and the exact same semi trucks the entire way, it seemed like. Like, every single stop, we'd all stop together and then get in our trucks, our respective trucks the next day, and off we go, right? And I mean, I'm just doing everything to like, I mean, days and days and days of driving, but I'm just like, I don't know. It wasn't anything in particular, but I was going up an on ramp and I was like looking to my right, kind of going back and forth. I mean, there's trucks in front of me and to the sides and behind me and everything like that. And people are trying to merge, but I'm like just kind of glancing. And there was a big tree line and another big tree line. And in the middle, it was a cow pasture, right? And so I'm looking at the cows. And then I notice in my glancing that there is something hauling ass across this field, like running on two legs, a dead flat sprint, big, big, wide strides, and it's huge. And I'm like, okay. And I keep doing this thing because I'm in traffic. I'm not gonna get, rear end a truck or get smashed between two of them, right? And so I keep glancing, and I get probably in the ballpark of 5 or 6 good looks in the span of like 15 seconds as I'm going up this big wide on ramp to the point where now whatever is going is somewhere where I can't see them because the road is now covering that, right? And I thought about it for a second and I'm like, nah, maybe, I don't know. And so I called Jeremy and I have him on speakerphone. I'm talking to him through the Bluetooth and I said, okay, so this is what just happened. And I mean, it was big and it seemed to be covered in hair. It was very bulky and kind of like, you know, the pattern was broken up a little bit. And so I was like, what could it have been besides that? And so we started breaking it down and everything. And I had already been in this podcast space for, I mean, we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we hear about that sort of stuff. Like people in Oklahoma, like especially crop dusters, they're like, oh yeah, you watch them break tree lines and go from one side to the other. It's no big deal. You see it all the time, right? It's just like, BFROs all over Oklahoma and everything, and it's just like whatever. So we kind of broke it down and everything, and I wasn't like overly spooked or like, oh man, I'm crazy, I'm losing my mind. But it was like we kind of got to this point where I was like, all right, so barring like a 7.5 foot tall Olympic athlete in a full dead flat sprint wearing a ghillie suit, you know, this is what I saw. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's better than Jeremy's experience. That sounds horrifying, but yeah, mine is like, all right, cool. Yeah, that works. But it was pretty neat.
Wow. O Oklahoma
Yeah.
is meant to be a
Yeah, oh, yeah,
squashy
very much
place as
so.
well.
So
Like,
it's
there's meant to
it's
be a lot of
really
squashes
interesting. I
around the world.
mean, like I'm not gonna say that I wasn't looking at all the tree lines as I was driving through, thousands of miles of literally nothing. Like everyone's like, oh man, the United States is so overpacked. It's like, no, it is in the cities. You get out there and bro, there's nothing. you know? So it's like even
Right.
where you'd expect to
Absolutely.
see a lot of just like, drive through towns and stuff. I'm sure there's enough of them to where you can fill up every, 100 miles or so, but there is an awful lot of just nothing out there. And so, it was keep my eyes peeled mostly for deer, but I was definitely looking, on the sides of the road and stuff. So that kind of blew my mind a little bit to see that. But it's interesting because, I could give that account to kind of put this in your, you know, in your playing field. I could give that account to my coworkers and they'd be like, "Yeah, bullshit." Right? There's no freaking way. And I'd be like, "Hey, I mean, this is what I had. That's my experience. That's what I saw, whatever you want to take it to." But then in some regards, I'm the exact same way when it comes to people having UFO sightings or things like that. And I'm just like, "Yeah, bullshit." Right? And then it it kind of it's weird to think about and be like, "Why would I give so much credit to this and not that?" When in reality, I'm not the guy that believes in little green men, but I certainly believe in interdimensional beings, and I would consider them to be spiritual and angelic or demonic or whatever it is, and that kind of bridges that gap. And
Right.
it's like, oh, well, that makes sense if you think about it that way. But it's like, I don't know why up until recently, and I had to have my own few experiences where it's like it could have been a plane, but it also wasn't moving, right? It was also perfectly still in the sky. To be like, okay, there is something out there and stuff. What it is, I don't know, but there is something out there. But yeah, definitely had to have my own fair share of, or a handful of experiences to kind of break me out of that realm of like, basically everyone's trying to lie to me and it's all for fame and attention. Um, and I really like how in the beginning of this interview, the first question Jeremy asked was, well, how do you go from historian to history of UFOs? And immediately it was like, well, I had these experiences, or I thought I had these experiences, and then I read a book and it like, I just latched onto that because I was like, oh, they're talking about, or in some ways talking about what I remember and stuff. And that, you know,
Right.
that's kind of why me and Jeremy started this podcast, was to kind of find people like that that could have, hear something like this and then be able to latch onto that and be like, oh, there's other people that have experienced stuff and I'm not insane or I'm not weird or anything like that. So I like what you're doing. It seems to be a lot of different things, and this is just kind of like one of the things, but it's a really interesting and neat,
Well, thanks, man. I think that once people have their own experiences, they do become more open to some of these things. And what the experiences are, I have no idea. That's cool though. What does that one
It
say?
just sucks.
It's
It's a
that's
Fresno
terrible. I just read
Nightcrawler because I'm originally from Fresno, California, and my this
Oh,
goofy, terrible,
how
dumb cryptid haunts me. and and my co-hosts, they send me things like we have a fan of the show that sent me 3D printed Fresno night crawlers for my shit box of a car in my garage to put on the dashboard. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you love me so much,
It looks like a
Yeah,
big wisdom
yeah.
tooth. Like, are you afraid of teeth?
does look like
I got my tooth
Are you
camera
afraid
over
of
here
teeth?
for later, so I can just smash them all out.
You told your story, and my computer shut off. So I
Yeah, it
missed
was
your whole
boring. It was
entire
dumb.
story.
It's all right. It was boring.
the
Your computer
Darrow hit
did
it
you?
with their the Darrow hit it with their rays.
No, literally, my computer stopped, and it said, "You can't get on here. You error."
What?
And then it like booted me from everything. So I
Darrow
didn't hear it.
Tampa.
Sounds like it did you a
Did you a
favor.
favor, Jeremy? I am literally, once we're done, I'm gonna
Aw.
come to your house and kick open your front door. We live like 300 yards from each other.
My wife would be
Like,
so
fix that.
pissed.
Wow. You guys are like the Raymond Palmer and the Richard Shaver of the scene today. Those guys moved from Chicago, and originally Shaver lived in like Pennsylvania or somewhere, right? But eventually he moved to the suburbs of Chicago because that's where Amazing Stories was. And then they relocated just down the road from me, Amherst, Wisconsin, in neighboring properties.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say, Jeremy and Jake, you guys are like the next Shaver Palmer.
Did one of them carry the other?
That's a good question. And in fact, that is the question. And depending on who you ask, you'd say one person would say the other one carried the other more. Samantha is very, very sympathetic to Richard Shaver. So her cat, she's very much it was Shaver was the one who was used and abused.
Well, you see,
What?
Jake has all that upper body strength that you can see. It's because
My
I'm not
back
a light
hurts from
guy.
carrying the team,
I'm
for sure. But also, I'm also crushed under the weight of my own humility. So, I'm just so incredibly humble. Oh my gosh, I found it.
He pulls his weight. He's the comedic weight. Did you find it?
Oh,
Did you
yeah, I
really?
found it.
The nipple
Oh
one?
my gosh, it's not the full thing, but it's enough.
You got back
It's
in
Oh
time,
my
Sam, to
gosh,
see the
this is-
nipples.
I can't believe I just found this. That's wild. Okay.
Man, we totally turned this interview with
Yeah,
them into a
that's
show
why I
about
tried not
us.
to say
That's
anything.
terrible. We
All
are
right,
not
all right,
professional.
all right.
We just want to see the nipples. We're just waiting to see the nipples.
There you go. There. This honestly might have been Jeremy's suggestion, but yeah, that is modeled.
You seriously need to bring
That
that
is
back and
modeled
sell
off
it
of
because I
a
know
real
of like a
person,
million
not the
people who
Bigfoot,
would buy
obviously,
that
but
like
well,
now.
maybe, but yeah, definitely the nips. That's a
Is that
no, no.
your
I
nips,
don't.
Jake,
I don't
or
know the guy.
Jeremy's? Whose
I
nips
might
are
have
those?
to. I probably.
No, you're not going to claim that one. You should totally bring it back because you will sell the crap out of that.
Where'd he
Now we
go?
lost Jake. I don't know. We're losing everybody tonight. That first it was the power of the Deros. Now it's the power of the Bigfoot nips. Knocked him out of there.
Oh, well, we hijacked your episode. I'm sorry.
Man, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we tend to have fun on the show. Give him a
That's the
second
point.
to jump back in.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll edit this out.
You should be selling that T-shirt, you guys, at UFO days. I bet Sam and I will buy a couple.
I'm gonna put that one on Jake. He can have that. that's up his alley. He's a Jake.
So did you guys move to your area together, or was one of you there and then the other one came, or?
Oh yeah. So we this is a story we told a million times on the show. So basically the gist is we met in the Navy in Norfolk, Virginia, and oh, there he is.
I tried to put end share or end screen share, and I pressed leave, and I was like, "Oh no!" I'll bring it back. I won't let Jeremy stop me this time.
No, oh, you mean like on a T-shirt? Yeah, go ahead. That's all yours. Yeah. If you buy the prints, Katie can put them on shirts.
Oh,
Nice.
If you have that at UFO days in Elmwood, I'm going to buy myself one of those.
Fair enough.
If it's there, I'm buying it. A large, I'll be buying one.
Oh man. So yeah, we met.
I have to get my dad one too, so he can do his.
Got 2 sales.
There we go.
There you go,
See, it's
Jake.
worth it.
There you go.
Good stuff.
I'm surprised you still have it. That's impressive, man.
Yeah, no, I'm shocked that I found it. That's pretty crazy.
I wonder if you have all the other funny stuff that you did.
I do. I'm looking at them right now. I'm blown away.
Do you have the one of Finland over Minnesota?
No, but I have the shirt hanging up upstairs.
Well, I would love to get that shirt back.
Yeah, we should do that.
There's a whole story behind that one. All right. Let's go ahead and do the outro so we can give these guys their lives back. All right. That was Dr. Dean. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's do the socials. Let's do the social plug. Let's get all that stuff. Where can everybody find you guys? Both of you.
Well, I would encourage people at the moment they can just go to homemovielegendtrip.com and that'll take you to the YouTube channel for Home Movie Legend Trip, which we've only just launched. It's brand new. It's been like a week and a day since we started actually releasing those. They can certainly catch me every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Central on the Untold Radio Network, and you can find that on YouTube or on Facebook or on X or on any podcast platform where I do Talking Weird. And you've been on, which was a great episode, Jeremy. If people are interested in the Shaver mystery, the short film, or the upcoming feature documentary, The Man Who Invented Flying Saucers, they can go to theshavermystery.com, and that will just point you straight to the Facebook page for both the short and the feature. And we always update when we're having an upcoming screening or what we're doing with the documentary at the moment, any trips we're going on to do more filming, or where they find out anything about what we're up to. And sometimes we post other Shaver and Palmer related stuff on there as well. So they'd be the main ones. Do you think that's about it, Sam? That's actually my old Talking Weird page.
This is the old one.
That's the one before I moved to the Untold Radio Network. So that still exists, but on YouTube, you have to go to the Untold Radio Network. So if you go to Untold Radio Network, there you go. And you can go to Untold Radio Network on Facebook or on X or on YouTube particularly, or on any podcast platform, and it will take you to Talking Weird, and you just click through to go to whatever the latest Talking Weird episodes are. And I think we just did episode 201 last week, but we'd been going along before that. So I think we're actually up to, like, before we were on the network, we're well over 300 episodes now. But yeah, go to Untold Radio. to see anything new. The last episode Sam was on, actually, talking about the launch of Home Movie Legend Trip.
Trying to get that. There we go. Yep, right there.
Yep, that's the most recent episode.
And then if you go
Every
all the way
Thursday,
down
9
here,
p.m.
there's that guy.
And there you are. Are you there?
Yep, right there.
There you go. So yeah,
Episode
go watch
195,
Jeremy's
everybody.
episode.
All
Yeah, it's
right.
fun. It's me just ranting. We'll have a guest I rant less, but it's me. If it's me and Sam, I'm probably ranting about something.
Oh,
If you
good.
notice, he does all the talking, and I just like to do the nods and the yes.
All right, Sam, what about you?
Nothing. I'm with him.
Just you find Dean, you
Same
find
places.
Sam.
No, I don't. We all the stuff that we do. It's all on the same platform.
So
Perfect.
homemovielegendtrip.com and the shavenmystery.com.
HomeMovieLegendTrip.com.
Let's.
Yep. Shavenmystery.com. Yep.
I want to bring that page up so people can see.
Yeah, that'll just take you. The Home Movie Legend Trip will just take you to the YouTube channel for homemovielegendtrip.com, and the shavermystery.com at the moment will just take you to the Facebook page for both the feature The Man Who Invented Flying Saucers and for the Shaver Mystery short. And they're probably the places that we're particularly, to be honest, at the moment we're most interested probably in people go and watch the first 2 episodes of Home Movie Legend Trip. There they are. There's the Hodag one, Monster Court, or footage of Werewolf in the Bray Road one. And if you like it and subscribe, because unlike my older channels, this is brand new. So you'll be one of the first people to watch these. This has been going for like a week and a day. So jump on, and we'll have a new episode dropping next week, and there'll be more and more and more episodes. So, and eventually you'll see Jeremy and you'll see Jake in the Elmwood episode, which we're looking forward to shooting at the end of this month.
Don't scare people away. We're
looking forward to it.
This is going to be a
That'll be
really
fun.
fun one.
The Elmwood one will be great. And you know what?
I feel like this is going to be really fun.
It might be the most fun one we've done. I think people will be interested in the next episode, the C5 contact one as well. That's our first UFO
That was cool
one.
too.
Oh,
No, they're all fun, but I feel
Did
like
you-
this one is going to be like shiesty fun. So it'll be good.
Did you do that with Zach Screed?
We
Was he-
did. You know Zach. We did do
I
Zach.
do know Zach.
He features in there quite a bit.
I have to reach out to Zach because I would love to get him on the show.
Oh, he's a sweetheart of a guy. Great guy. I want to get him on Talking Weird as well. I haven't had.
He is. When I did my talk in Caps out in, gosh, where was that? I don't remember. Drawing a blank. Sorry, I've been up since 4:00 in the morning, and I gotta wake up at 4:00 in the morning to go back to work. It's just
Gosh, you need to go to bed. My
Me
friend.
too. Gosh, we're like twins.
I have to edit this, and now I gotta edit all the stuff that Jake did. Just kidding.
The back,
I'm
the
leaving
back
it
end
in.
is always the worst part when you do a show and you got to do that back end stuff. It sucks.
It
We
is.
should probably let you go. We should probably let you go get back to life.
No. I am gonna go ahead and do the outro. Did anybody have anything else to say before we?
No,
do
I
that, though.
appreciate you letting us do the plugs for the socials at the end. Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
It was great. It was a fun episode. I really enjoyed it.
I subscribed, and I'm looking forward to you guys' next couple episodes. Like they were really fun.
Thanks,
really
man.
fun.
I hope so. We really try to make them accessible and fast and just feel like you're watching something which is to everything else out there. That's what we try to do.
All right, Jake, say something nice.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming on. Certainly do. And not only did I subscribe, but I hit the bell so I get notified when the next
Wow.
video drops. Yeah. Because
That's-
I'm a super fan, unlike Jeremy, who just subscribes.
I just hit the bell. Okay, I just did it. I didn't even know there was a bell.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the whole thing. No, I appreciate y'all coming on to our show. No, it was a lot of fun. It was very interesting to hear from y'all and what you're up to and stuff. And yeah, I definitely look forward to meeting y'all in person during Elmwood UFO days. That'll be fun.
And I can't wait. Thank you again, guys.
All right. Well, that was Dr. Dean Bertram and Samantha Krause, a historian and a filmmaker, both rooted right here in Wisconsin, both committed to searching the rabbit holes that most people walk right past. And tonight they reminded us that the strange and the unexplained are not just hiding in the desert or in government vaults. They are in the fields outside Wausau. They are in the pulp magazines. that shaped a generation. They are woven into the fabric of the state of Wisconsin in ways most people never stop to notice. The story of flying saucers in America is not just a story about lights in the sky. It is a story about a Pulp magazine editor who understood something fundamental about human beings, that we are hungry for mystery. And when given the right nudge, the line between a story and a reality can dissolve almost completely. Raymond Palmer knew that. He built a cultural movement on top of it, and echoes of what he built are still shaping the conversation today, including the disclosure conversations happening at the highest levels of government right now. Jake and I want to thank Dean and Samantha for being our white rabbits tonight and for guiding us somewhere genuinely uncomfortable to some and genuinely close to home for us. That is what the best guides always do. The man who invented flying saucers is in production now. The Shaver Mystery Short is still making its way through the festival and convention circuit. Home Movie Legend Trip just dropped its second episode this past Sunday, so if you have not watched it yet, now is a great time to start from the beginning. Midwest Weird happens right down the road from us in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and all of their links will be in the description. This has been another interview for Project White Rabbit. Have a good night, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.